Welcome to Being Boss, a podcast for creatives, business owners, and entrepreneurs who want to take control of their work and live life on their own terms. I'm your host, Emily Thompson, and in this episode, I'm joined by my pals Erica Courdae and Tasha Harrison to chat with me about what it's like to be business besties with someone or multiple someones who run similar businesses. Tune in while we explore the ins and outs of having authentic, vulnerable conversations with each other as hosts of online communities and hear how it is that we share and support while never falling into the trap of competition or copying. You can find all of the tools, books, and links we reference on the show notes at www.beingboss.club. And if you like this episode, be sure to subscribe to the show and share us with a friend. In my experience, creatives struggle with sales. You're great at what you do, but you have a hard time talking about it, especially in sales-focused conversations. If this is you, then I have your next podcast recommendation for you. The Salesman Podcast, hosted by Will Barron, brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network. If you want to learn how to sell, the Salesman Podcast will teach you how to find buyers and win business in effective and, my favorite, ethical ways. Some of Will's latest episodes include the 4-step process to influencing buying decisions, using strategy rather than hustle to win more sales, and sales targeting, supercharge your sales funnels and boost close rates. Check out this show and get better at selling what you do. Listen to the Salesman Podcast wherever you get your podcasts. This episode is going to be a good one today, as I'm joined by two friends who are no stranger to this show and the Being Boss community, Erica Courdae and Tasha Harrison. Erica Courdae is a trusted advisor to entrepreneurs and executive teams committed to shifting focus, power, and resources in order to create more equity in their business and the world. She believes imperfect action is necessary to create meaningful social change and helps public figures engage in the work without fear of judgment. Tasha Harrison is a purveyor of filthy fiction with feelings and host of Wordmaker's writing community, where authors show up to do the actual writing work. You can hear more from both of these bosses in past episodes of the Being Boss podcast by finding them on our website at beingboss.club/guests. We're literally not even beginning yet, and we cannot stop giggling. Everyone, welcome to this ridiculous episode of the Being Boss podcast. Tasha and Erica, welcome. So glad y'all are here. We are going to try really hard to do this. We're just going to try hard to do this. We got this.
We got this.
Sure-ish. Okay, perfect. To get us started, let's do a really quick intro yourself, just so everyone knows who is who. Erica, you are first on my screen. Have at it.
Hey, I am Erica Courdae. If you are in the Being Boss community, you may have been in there and had conversations with me. I am a diversity, equity, and inclusion coach and consultant. I am also the host of the Pause on the Play podcast, where myself and my business partner, Indy, and I talk about visibility, branding, and all things that intersect with DEI.
Wonderful. Tasha, you next.
Hi. I'm Tasha L Harrison. I am a romance author, and I also host a writing community called Wordmakers. I'm also in the Being Boss community, and I'm not sure I've done anything of note except for be absurd.
You did not.
I mean, I think your absurdity is of note.
Yes. Call me the mascot.
Indeed. Perfect. I'm so glad that you are both here. I was talking to Erica recently, and I was like, I really want to find an excuse to get the three of us on a podcast together. What you got? And one of the things that came up for her was we could talk about what it's like us all running the same business. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, we run communities. I was like, oh, I forgot about that. We sure do. We sure do. And I think this is a really great podcast idea because one of the foundations of Being Boss, I mean, literally, we were founded on this sort of principle or the story of Kathleen and I were business besties running similar but different businesses. There was definitely some overlap, and we were having conversations about what it meant to do the work that we were doing, and it turned into this podcast. And so a basis of what we do here, and really a huge part of our community, is this idea that we can do business better and have more fun and all of these things if you cultivate community and find business besties. But a lot of times people get stuck with this idea of like, well, I only know other photographers, or I only know other interior designers. And they think that blocks them from being friends with them, and not the case. So my hope here is for us to share this conversation where we talk about what it's like for the three of us to have communities, to have a very similar business model, at least part of our business model, and it be so not a thing that I literally forgot about it.
I mean, and that's the beauty of that right there. It's like,
right?
Yeah, that.
Totally forgot about it. So let's start though, maybe with like a little setup for our relationship so that people can see sort of where we're coming from and how we've gotten to this place. Mostly, how did we meet? I don't even know where to start. Maybe Tasha, actually.
Yes.
I feel like you started this whole thing. You.
Okay. Maybe. I am what you call an OG Being Boss Club member.
Yep.
I was listening to the podcast probably starting in like the second year you guys had it. A friend of mine named Kate at the time was really into it, and she was like, "You need to listen to this podcast." And I was like, "Okay," and then immediately became obsessed. And then we went to the Being Boss Miami vacation, and that was when we all met in person. And I decided that I was going to make one or both of you my friends. You didn't know that. So some spell casting, maybe not consensual. It's fine. And then proceeded to make that happen. Well, my first spell was like, y'all are going to say my name every time we do like a Being Boss podcast, like live.
Oh my God.
And it happened.
Yeah. Okay. So first of all, Tasha is extra magical. I don't know if you guys have picked up on that, but I do actually think you told me in Miami that you said that we were going to be your friends. And I remember being like, what the hell is wrong with this one?
Weirdo. I was like, yep, we're going to be friends. And then by the third Being Boss trip, I was like, are we friends, Emily? And you were like, yes. What do I need to do to prove that we're friends?
Yes, Tasha. Yes.
Yes, we are friends.
Right. So Miami was in 2016. So this has been, oh my God, how long is that? 6 years?
Wow.
That is wild. That is absolutely wild. So
a decade we've known each other.
Oh my goodness. I cannot believe it. So we've been friends for a while. I guess we got real close when we became Marco Polo friends. Yes. I think is when it really started happening. And then in August of 2019, you and I and Kate were at a podcasting conference together, and we all went to a session on DEI in the podcasting world or something. It was very important. What really came out of it for us is we walked away with an Erica friend. Right? Yes. Erica, you want to pick it up from there?
So I remember that being, and it still feels like that was one of those conferences that I went to that felt like in so many ways it was a very pivotal moment. Like that was where I made a lot of connections. That was that point where I had really put my stake in the ground of like, this is what I do. I've been talking about the same things for a while, even when I was in a whole different industry, and really claiming being a speaker. And that was what y'all were witnessing, was the first time that I was actually purposefully speaking in public. And the beauty of it was that a lot of people were like, oh, you're going to be nervous. And I was like, but I don't feel nervous. So like, I'm that person that I don't get nervous. I don't feel afraid or scared. But yet at the same time, it was like I had created big shoes to fill for myself. And so in my head, I was like, I sure hope this is coming out the way I think this is, because my brain sometimes moves real fast and I'm hoping my mouth catches up. And so
I recognize that feeling. Yeah.
So I knew that from what I was getting, it seemed like people were picking up what I was putting down. And if I remember correctly, I said something, and I think Tasha asked some questions or something, and I was like, oh, I think I like her.
Yep. Tasha's that one in the crowd.
I was in church.
Yep.
And she was asking the questions that whenever you're speaking to a group, you always have those questions that you hope somebody asks. Tasha did that and beyond. I was like, I like her. And at the end, I just remember, it's going to sound really weird, y'all, but if y'all have met Emily, you understand. I just remember this small person coming up with this big old energy and almost just kind of like having this look and sliding me the business card and kind of wafting away.
Did you really just float in? That's
Maybe.
what you did?
Look, and as she's saying this, her arms are out like she's floating. Like, I love that you have that vision of me 100%.
I remember that. I remember her coming up and just being like, we were kind of like the background singers, and Emily just came up like, hi.
Hey girl, hey. I feel like you're our people. Yeah, I do remember giving you a business card because like I'm not trying to take up all your time. I'm not here to like, I just want you to be like, hey, call me later. Right.
And that was kind of what it was. And it was like, I remember being like, I knew that you were someone like, okay, I want to connect with this person. Because when you go to these things, you have like pockets full of business cards. Mm-hmm. And this was the card that stayed in the pile that I knew I wanted to reconnect with.
I love
and
that.
The interesting thing about it was while I was gone, I really wasn't on social media. And I came back to people being like, Bing Boss shouted you out. And I was like, who?
What?
Because the beauty is for me was that at that point, I still in a lot of ways and still am not, was not indoctrinated into online in the way that like I would fangirl over people I would create this aura around them that wasn't real because people just kind of made them larger than life. So I was like, I'm not sure who this is. I'm not sure why you're like doing this weird thing right now. And then I was like, oh, okay, I get it now. But I didn't have that reference before. So when I met Emily. I didn't meet, the person formerly known as Half of Being Boss. I did not meet. That was not what was happening.
She wasn't a symbol then? Like,
no.
Yep. No.
And so, but I thought that was helpful because I met two of you as humans.
Yeah.
Not what people projected about you, not what they wanted to be believed about you, not the persona that people craft around what you do. I met two humans.
Yeah.
True.
Oh.
And that made a difference.
I love it.
How did we all end up in a Marco Polo?
Okay, I remember this. I know this answer. So I actually don't remember how I got on Marco Polo with you, Erica, except it might have been Alt Summit when we met up there. I feel like there was an exchange of phone numbers or something, and we ended up on Marco Polo together. I think because we met up at that conference.
And it was after that we were having the conversation because Being Boss could not go to NOLA.
Oh my God, that's right. I invited you to come speak at the conference, and then it was like, actually, never mind, you can't come because no one's going.
No one can come.
Right?
Right.
That is right. Okay, perfect. So I was Marco Polo friends with each of you separately. If you guys are not familiar with the Marco Polo app, Kathleen and I have been talking about it for years. We're still like, it's my favorite way to, I don't call, I don't text, I Marco Polo, just so we're all clear there. So I was talking to you separately on Marco Polo, and in August of 2020, I went to Denver for a crystal show. And I was talking to you both about crystals, and I was going, and you were both like, you have to show me everything. And I was like, but can I just put you both in the same Marco Polo group? Because it's going to be easier to show you once than to show you each individually twice. And you were both like, absolutely. And the rest is history.
Wow.
You were right, because that one included rainbow obsidian. I remember now.
Those tiger iron palm stones.
Oh, the tiger iron.
Yeah.
And didn't you get some garnet from that one too, Erica? No, was that the ruby one?
Nope.
No, the ruby was later, the record keeper. See, we can talk about crystals all day because that's the other piece.
Like, this is how we're marking time. Like, oh no.
No, that's when we got the crystals.
Right.
For sure. So what I really want to do there is just sort of share what this looks like. It's, it's been a friendship based on, I think, mutual interests. We were all at podcasting conferences, right? Like consuming or doing or whatever it may be, making sort of intentional places to meet up and or connect and to stay connected along the way. I even remember like early 2020 stuff, like navigating beginning of the pandemic, especially you, Erica, like having some conversations about what the fuck are we doing? How are we going to make this work? And so being really intentional about staying connected together, bringing it together, like all three of us. And then really we just talk crystals, y'all, most of the time. But we also do talk a lot of business. It's often that one of us will pop in and be like, okay, I have this thing, like, if you can like ask me some questions, help me figure this out or whatever it may be. And so it is about like community stuff, but it's also podcast stuff or just like weird stuff we see in the news or like current events that we want to talk about. We're just friends talking about everything, but we're also business owners who have cultivated these relationships amongst ourselves, or we can come and talk about business just as much and as easily as we can talk about crystals. Did I miss anything there? Like, what do we talk about?
Y'all be talking about astrology, and I'll just be listening.
Yeah, I'm trying to get there, but I'm like, help.
Right?
Tarot,
Parenting too.
Oh yes,
yeah, lots of parenting
Food.
stuff. Plenty of food, for sure. Or so really the whole gamut, of things to talk about, more or less. So okay, perfect. That's what I really wanted to set the stage with. Let's talk about what it looks like to talk about business together, because we do very intentionally pop in occasionally and just talk business. I actually have a couple of maybe hidden questions around this in a second. But let's talk about our individual communities. And I want anyone who's listening to this to consider what this looks like for your business. So again, if you're a photographer or an interior designer or a life coach or a yogi or an artist or whatever, like we're going to be talking about our shared like revenue model of online community, but this can be applicable across any and every industry. This is not just online community stuff. So let's do like a quick sort of intro, I guess, re-intro to communities. Tell me about your community. Let's do who it's for, why, and how does it fit into your business model? Tasha, I'll make you go first this time.
Okay, great. Who's it for? Who's it for? It's for veteran and aspiring authors who struggle to find time or to make time to write. So the whole group is based on just doing the writing work. There's lots of other stuff that we include, like, you know, the business of writing and craft and all that, but mostly it's just to bring everyone to their seats and behind the keyboard to get some writing done.
And how does that fit into your business model?
Well, I started it because I needed to have accountability. I've been a member of writing groups before, and for years I've been whining about wanting to have another one after that one dissolved. And everybody kept telling me, you need to make your own group if you want to write one. And I was like, well, I just want to be in one. I don't want to run one. And eventually it just got to the point where it's like, you know what, I can't not run one. Like I really need to have other people to write with. So I started a challenge, and then the challenge became a quarterly thing. And then the quarterly challenge became a writing group. And how did it fit my business model? It's allowed me to write more words. I've been way more productive as a romance author. Like I used to be a 1 book a year person, and now I'm 2 to 3.
Okay, hold on. That's adorable.
I was like,
you are, oh girl, lies. How many books did you write last year?
Actually, I only wrote 1 book last year. It took me up. I was burnt out last year.
Okay. Because how many books did you write in 2020?
In 2020, I wrote 4 books.
Okay. Also, it is March 8th as of recording this. How many books have you written this year?
I've written 2 books.
Okay. It's just so everyone hears that.
Okay. I was getting ready to say, Tasha.
Right.
Tasha.
We know how productive you are. If this has increased your productivity, that is like the understatement of the year. You have definitely used this space to cultivate an environment in which you are incredibly productive and are writing so many books, and you've created a community that sort of holds you accountable, but that you can give that back, and you're also making money from it.
Yeah. That's the best part.
And you're writing quality. So let's acknowledge that too. It's not I'm putting out just to put out. Like,
honestly, I'm going to be 100% with you. Like before having the community, I was so focused on publishing, like getting a book done, getting it out, that I was probably rushing through some stories and not giving all I could give to the story. But now I have time to sit down and take time with it, and also have a group of people I can just brainstorm with, like during our breaks, and just be like, look, I hit this plot point. This character's not doing what I need him to do. What do I do? And we can all brainstorm, which has really, really helped a lot.
You're welcome, Tasha, for creating your own commercial for your own community there. You didn't even realize.
Word me.
I mean, that's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge.
It is. It is. And I love watching you do it. I love that you've done it in this way. And I also feel like this is going to turn into a commercial for just like literally join a community, get some accountability, find your people, one way or the other. And if you're a writer, word makers, for sure.
I think it's a part of the reason why it works so well is because for the longest time, people have portrayed writing as like a solitary vocation. Like you have to be like alone in a room with your words and like some whiskey, and that's the only way it's going to work. Those things don't actually work, especially not the whiskey. So I think it made it easier for me to be able to be like, look, I need help. Do y'all need help? And once I said it out loud, I had a whole lot of takers.
I love it. All right, Erica, tell me about your community, or us, everybody.
So Pause on to Play the community. In a lot of ways, it was conceptualized before the social uprising of 2020, but that definitely brought it to the forefront for a lot of people. We created it as a space for imperfect allies, people that are seeking to reconsider their normal and want to be able to do it in community with others that are doing similar things. Funny story, we actually used to say people that were like-minded, and we're like, we don't want people to be like-minded. We want people to be of different minds, but to be united in their values and the impact that they want to make. So we talk about visibility, how it is that you show up and utilize your platform, your privilege, the types of impact that you want to make in the world, leaving behind a legacy, bringing in diversity, equity, and inclusion, and the fact that DEI is not something that you do, it's how you do all things. And so it's been for people that are trying to bring it into their lives, people that are, they work for someone else, but they are starting their own business, and some are fully established business owners. And it really is a non-judgmental space to be open to ask the questions that you can't in other places, and to know that it's safe because you decided it's safe, not because I got on the sales page and told you it was safe, because we all know that that's not always safe.
It's a little bit of a red flag, actually.
Yes, it really is.
It's a safe space. No, it ain't.
Yeah, nope. You have to say it probably ain't.
Right.
I should probably go check my sales page now. I'm not even gonna lie.
I can't even remember if safe is on my sales page, actually.
Right.
I'm definitely gonna check that.
Yeah, okay.
Well, and it was created in order to remind people that you could have these conversations that you were afraid to have. You could connect with others, and that you didn't have to be afraid to do these things. And so it's amplifying that, opportunities that are shared, all those things. It plays into the business model as kind of it's an extension of the podcast. The podcast started on its own. Accidentally, it was an audio blog post that became a whole thing. And the community really is where people go when they are either not ready, or we don't have the capacity for what we say 2-to-1 work, being that is India and I working with them, or they work with us and they really want that community element. So the podcast gives you that place to kind of get a feel for us, whether or not this is where you want to be. I cuss, I'm going to take you to church, I'm going to do all these things, even though I'm not religious. And so you need to figure out whether or not I'm the person that you want to work through your imperfect allyship with. And if so, then from there, you either kind of decide, yes, I want to be in the community. This is where I want to be, and I want the community, or I want the community and I want to work with you on my own as well.
I like it. I don't think I realized that one, your podcast was an accident and that your community came from it. Because like that also means that Being Boss and Pause in the Play have very similar origin stories, which makes us even more similar than even I thought, which makes this conversation even better.
See? Oh yeah. It was an accident. Indy and I were having a conversation and it was a blog post and somebody was like, you know, you got a podcast. I was like, shit, I don't want the work. Right. And what happened was the podcast was there. And the services kind of started to show up of people wanting to work with us. Because what we found out was that people would work with us separately. And then we would both be like, I can't talk to you about what I'm doing. And you can't talk to me about what you're doing. But they clearly are not doing what I know you told them to do. And so if they work with both of us, we can figure this out together, which is where we ended up actually doing 2-to-1 services so that we could bring those things together. And the community ended up existing because there wasn't something that existed like this. And there wasn't something that existed that was not simply focusing diversity, equity, and inclusion on white women that wanted to figure out how to be in a safe space with one another. And we wanted to get outside of that. It was about figuring out how to get you out of your bubble, but also understanding what imperfect allyship actually means and being in action with it. Let's not just talk about this stuff. So we created what we found was not existing and complemented what we were doing because we found too many people were not talking. There were opportunities being missed. There was money being missed. There were visibility opportunities being missed. And putting them in the same room meant, hey, you know that person got a podcast, right? Hey, you know that person over there does the thing that you've been looking for, right? Let's do this.
Perfect. Okay. So that's Erica's. Y'all know mine. You guys, Being Boss podcast listeners, a community for creative business owners, small business owners who want to enjoy the benefits of doing business together. So basically a large scale version of literally what's happening on this podcast today, more or less. You're seeing what it looks like to show up and talk business and how you can work through the things together in a space with a community platform. And then we do a lot of events and things, both virtual and literally starting to do in person, y'all. And I'm so excited. So excited. HubSpot's CRM platform can help you kickstart your sales process, increase your leads, and stay connected with customers. Plus, it will scale with your business, making HubSpot the perfect tool for any creative business owner. Hear it from a real boss using HubSpot to grow their business.
My name is Laura DeFranco. I'm the founder of Free Period Press, a Being Boss podcast fan and HubSpot CRM customer. It's really important to have a pulse on what's going on with our retail customers. I want to know how their customers are responding to our product, our prices, and what trends they're seeing in their shops. Even though we're working digitally, we're trying to keep our relationships as human as possible by developing real connections with store owners. We use HubSpot to track all of our wholesale accounts and prospects. We're honestly just scratching the surface in HubSpot's capabilities, but it's really nice to know that we're set up in a system that has the features we'll need as we grow. We track the contact information for all of our wholesale stockists and leads in HubSpot. There's so much data that we can add for each stockist, not just email and address, but any personal notes, the last time they ordered, or special requirements. When it's time to reach out to our accounts, we can filter so that we're sending more personalized messages to each store, and that is super helpful. My HubSpot CRM platform helps my business stay connected. Learn more about how it can do the same for yours at HubSpot.com.
So 3 businesses running online communities. A lot of times people will fear that once you get in and you start talking about things like things get messy, maybe there are things you don't want to share, which is actually what I want to. Now, do I want to start there? No, let's start somewhere else. Let's start with the kinds of things that we talk about when we're talking about our communities. So I asked you all to come up with one example of a time that you have come to the group to talk about your community, just to give everyone listening an idea of the kinds of things that literally are being talked about amongst 3 people who run a very similar business. Erica, why don't you go first?
I think one of the things that has come up for me was that obviously being boss was more established. And so there were definitely pieces of me kind of seeing how you having to remind people like, hey, I've trademarked this. Don't come do this. Reminded me of what to do before I had things like imperfect allyship trademarked. But I also think that kind of coming in and figuring out like how to care for myself, if that makes sense. Mm-hmm. Because what I do can put me in a place where if I'm not careful, I will minimize my own feelings or put myself in a place to burn out in order to support others. And so it's like, help, please.
Yeah, you're right. I feel like you have come to us many times with like just personal boundary things, right? And yes. We've talked many times about how the work that you do is such an emotional load.
Yes.
Right? Like unlike anything probably 98% of the people listening to this podcast can even relate to, right? And so you have to do self-care on the next level and have boundaries on the next level to enable you to show up in your spaces, whether it's those 2-to-1 spaces or, your 2-to-many community situation. So yeah, we have talked about those sorts of sort of personal energy management and boundary things.
Yes. And this is where I also want to be clear that like, this is what I don't think that everybody understands about friendships. Friendships don't necessarily always mean you come in and you cross boundaries when it comes to things like confidentiality. So I don't come in and be like, this person did blah, blah, blah. I come in and I'm like, this is how I feel. I need help. And why I think that's so important is because there was a time in my life where I felt like there was that type of a level of transparency needed in order to have that friendship. And I actually don't think that's true. I actually think that having some boundaries of what you bring and why, because you really have to ask yourself, like, does this add to the conversation? Does anybody benefit from this level of verbal vomiting? And being able to figure out, like, what am I actually looking for here is important. Because like you said, the energy management part is a huge thing, because bringing it back to crystals, when I was like, I need to figure out what my crystal toolkit is. And Tasha was like, oh, actually it's blah, 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 blah. And it was like, I already bought those things from Emily.
There you go.
But I
was like, you already got it.
Right. And sometimes part of it is just that being able to verbally process something and having somebody mirror something back, or to be like, yeah, but you missed something. Mm-hmm. Because one of the words that I love about the conversations that we have is and. We're not like, yeah, but we'll say, yeah, I love that. And because it's not negating what came up, it's adding to. And I think that that's something that's really important.
That was beautiful.
I try.
That was beautiful.
Beautiful.
And I will say, one, as you were saying that, you have never shared any names or like legit right. Look at Tasha's eyebrow though.
I mean, like, I didn't realize I wasn't supposed to be doing that, but you're going to tell about it anyway. So.
Okay. Well, there's also a very big difference, I think, between just in industry even. But no, you are very good about coming in and just sort of asking for the support that you need in that sort of situation. And because Tasha and I both have communities, we're able to understand on a different level what it's like to hold that space, not just for like one-on-one clients or like, a little, but like tens of people, hundreds of people in some cases, right? And so we're able to offer up a little more insight or or some crystals as needed, right? Perfect. Rituals, crystals, really just awful sayings we say to each other that are very kind and true, but like also triggering and obnoxious.
Mm-hmm. This is how we know we're friends. We can say hard and really hurtful things and be like, but I love you.
Right. I literally pointed and yelled at Tasha at lunch the other day.
Oh my God. It was so funny. I wish I had got it like on recording, like when she first said it. She was like, you need to get the fuck off Twitter. And I was like,
I couldn't say it like this to literally many other human beings in my life, but legit.
Like,
legit.
Southern accent kicked in all the way. Finger was out.
Squinched up face. It was legit.
And this now makes me feel bad because then last year Tasha said something and I was like, you give a lot, but I need you to keep more. She was so
we talked about that too.
I was so offended.
That's the incredibly kind but obnoxious thing that you say all the time.
All the time. But the kicker is she needs to take her own damn advice in that way.
I do.
Oh,
I do.
Mm-hmm.
I do. That is why I recognize it.
Cobbler without some energetic shoes.
I'm fairly certain that's when I cried that time. You got on my nerves.
I love it. Okay. Next example. Tasha, you're Tasha. Tasha, for you, what is an example of something that you have brought to the group?
Well, compared to y'all, like I'm very much a baby in this whole building community thing.
Oh,
like,
stop it.
No. Like I've been doing it for 2 years and y'all had podcasts before. So like you have had a team to, build your businesses with. And it's just, it's been me. So I'm fairly certain I whined a whole lot in 2020 about holding space for a community, how to create boundaries. How do I do this and still be able to do my own work and all that? And y'all were really helpful in, helping me establish a way to work within the community and to serve the people in my community without sacrificing too much of my own creativity and my own time. But yeah, that's pretty much, that was really what cemented it. Like I probably would have shut down the community if it wasn't for y'all. Like, how many times I've been like, this is it. I quit. I'm closing it. I'm closing everything down. Close the doors. It's over. I don't care. You're like, no, but how about you?
In that case, we will do a but for sure.
Yeah.
Really, but how about we think of something else?
Like, first of all, you don't mean that. Second of all, So yeah, definitely helping me to establish, how I can work within the community, how I could still get it to work with me and for me in some ways, but also to be okay with it not being the thing that I created at the beginning to serve me and my needs.
The thing that comes up for me, even like to look at this through a different lens, is I feel like one of the things that Erica and I have done with and for you is challenge you to think bigger with the thing that you created, because you created it just for yourself so you could write. But then getting you, like, once you had that and it started growing, and you felt the weight of that, because like that initial sort of purpose and structure wasn't working. It was like, well, then what does it look like? Right? Let's think bigger. Let's plan bigger. Let's consider what it would look like to have someone come in and help you, or to involve more of your community members, or whatever it may be. So it has really been a challenge of I think through my lens of getting you to think like differently, but also just bigger about the thing that you've created, because it does work. It's amazing. You just got to get out of your box sometimes.
Yeah. You did.
Erica, anything to add to that one? You look smirky up there. What are you thinking?
Uh-oh.
I know.
No. I think as a whole, there is that place of reminding each other, like, what else is possible? Because I think we try to think about what that is, but we can only see as far as we can see. And so when you have other people that are witnessing you just existing, they're not watching you on a pedestal. They're not watching you perform. They're simply just watching you do what you do. And they're able to reflect back, hey, so that you're actually capable of more than what you have told yourself you are, or that you're limiting yourself to because it's easy right now. And it is challenging sometimes to receive it, but it's challenging to feel comfortable enough to share that with somebody. Because in some cases, it's like, okay, but what does that mean for me? What does, why am I saying, like, there's so many things I think that can come up with it, but having a space that you can actually say, hey girl, hey, so that thing that you had said? No. Actually, here's this. And knowing that it's a safe space to say it, but it's also a safe space to respond. Even if that respond is to just come back and be like, you was right. I don't know if she was right, but she was right.
And I think too, part of it, what I really enjoy about this particular friendship, like it would be really easy for me to be intimidated by y'all. Like to be, because y'all some goof. Y'all some, well, truthfully. Truthfully. But y'all some boss ass bitches. You've done some things that, like I feel like, oh, well, I can't wait till I'm doing that. I can't wait till, but it's never just like, oh, I can't do that. I will never be able to do that. Or looking at you or looking at Emily or Erica and being like, oh, well, this is not something I can ever achieve. I always feel like I'm in a room with these bitches. So eventually it's going to rub off on me. So.
Darty is.
I was getting ready to say it. Well, but let's acknowledge also that we share opportunities with each other.
Yes.
Whether that's other people that we know, whether that's, hey, I have a platform and you're doing something. So how about you come do that thing here? And I think that that's important as well, because we're not just being like, I'm going to bring my friend on. It's like, no, my friend is talented. This individual happens to be talented and then my friend. So I don't have to go through the regular channels
I could
to
just
be like,
Marco
you want
Polo.
to come do this thing. Right. And there's something to be said about creating a network in that way. But it went beyond just networking.
I will also say too, literally just this morning, we were on Marco Polo and Erica and I were like, Tasha, you've written 2 books this year. All I want to do is write a book this year. Show us your ways. Right. So like there's also like it is very reciprocal in so many ways. I also want to point out, I remember, so we took the community tier of the Being Boss community free in August. And I remember shortly after Tasha, you coming in and being like, so tell me about that. Like, did you like taking it free? Was it worth it? Should I do it? And us having like a very practical conversation of like, one, how that has worked out for us. And, but also like, what is our mission and vision for the community? And how does this pricing structure affect that thing? And so really even sometimes getting incredibly practical and like into the money of it and the numbers of it and looking at like how different business strategies have affected the thing, and giving you sort of every bit of information that we could to help you decide if that was something you wanted to try or not. I think you did, and you didn't like it, right?
I did, and I hated it. Mostly because it established another, like I had to create content for another set of people who weren't actually in the functioning community and taking advantage of all the benefits of the full community. They were just on the free level. And, I did it for one iteration of 20K in 5 days. And then in January, I was like, hey, y'all, this free level is about to go away. So y'all can move up or you can move out. But that's the only options. And most of them moved up.
Yeah. So it did end up working sort of long term. So sometimes we are literally getting in here and talking about like that kind of stuff as well and sort of weighing some pros and cons of very like business strategy, nuts and bolts sort of situations. What is my example? I feel like we've had some behavioral things that we've chatted out together. Right. Some people in the community, and not to say like literally I can think of the 2 years that we've had, the 2.5 almost, that the Being Boss community has been open. This version of it, I feel like we've only had 2 conversations ever of like, did y'all see that? Did y'all see that comment? Then we'll like talk it out, figure out what we need to do next. And the Erica will go in there and be passive aggressive and we'll love it. I'm just kidding.
Well, I enjoy this.
Yeah, right. Or whatever it may be. I feel like I'm often bringing like moral situations to you.
Yes.
Because I often like Erica is the most compassionate of all of us. If I ever need to like, Tasha's gonna hit my level of just like fiery angst.
Like, oh hell no. Like my first reaction is always like, oh hell no.
Right, burn it down. It's fun. And Erica's always like, yes, and let's stop and think about it. Which is an energy that I love.
Y'all are like, you're the compassionate one. I'm like, who, me?
No, seriously. We'll get in there and be like, oh, well, I'm going to give my opinion on what you should do. But after, I'm going to wait for Erica to see what she has to say, because she's the more level-headed of us. Because me and Emily are just going to react like angry.
Yep. Immediately. So those sorts of things. And also recommendations for like, I remember a couple of events. looking at like sourcing speakers and what books are you reading these days and all of those sorts of things. So really, really using the two of you as a resource for morals because I lack them. And, and two, eyeballs because I don't consume things on the internet.
Well, but here's the funny part. We can have something that comes up that looks like it's in the news, and we can end up having for anybody that's familiar with Marco Polo, 15 slides later, we have had this back and forth conversation about it. And it'll start going into, like we've had ones around free speech. We've had ones around the housing market. We've had ones around interdependence in societies. Like these things will be like, here's this thing. And then before we realize it, it's like, it has morphed into this own thing because now you're getting, well, here's what I've done, or this is what I've experienced. Yeah, I don't like this thing. Well, what about this? And so there are these opportunities of educating one another on things that we don't know, but also getting these different perspectives because we have some similarities in where we are now and, families of origin kind of growing up thing and how we were conditioned. And yet there's things that are very different. And so none of those things, similar or different, create boundaries, which is really important. So whatever that conversation is, that conversation gets to be what it is.
Yeah.
And it gets to take on the life of its own and we let it happen, which I think is a beautiful organic thing.
Yeah.
And then Erica also has this habit of jumping in and, letting the Scorpio come all the way out and challenging us late on a Friday night with like ridiculous questions. About
it's my Virgo.
Ridiculous questions about our existence on this earth or like how we move and breathe, like literally.
Yeah, I literally get sweaty just thinking about it.
Y'all just don't know. I had one the other night. I'm still going to bring it. It's about ancestors.
Oh, no.
Oh, here we go. Boss, let's get real. Are you still struggling with managing the money side of your business? These days, with tools and tips and me driving it right into your ear holes, there's really not much excuse for you to not have this under wraps. So let's go back to the tools. Our friends at FreshBooks have made this about as easy for you as it can be. FreshBooks has everything you need to manage your books. Invoices, expenses, time tracking. It'll even send out automatic reminders for invoices and fix you up with late fees when a client doesn't pay on time. Which means it's also here to ease the pain of having those awkward conversations when necessary. What more can you want? If you're determined to do your own money management or just are not ready to hand it off yet, stop messing around and go check out FreshBooks. Try FreshBooks free for 30 days, no credit card required by going to freshbooks.com/beingboss to get started today. So here's really one of the things that I want to highlight here. I was actually in a Monday meetup for the Being Boss community yesterday, and this kind of came up. So a boss came in to the group and she was like, I don't have anyone else to like bring this sort of question to. No one in my life is a business owner and understands this. So like, here's the thing. We were all like, oh girl, like, well,
that's what
we got this. For. Yeah. And one of the things I said, and I say like, boss friends are the best friends because there is a level of self-awareness. There is a level of sort of breadth of perspective and curiosity in the world that allows, like, no matter whether you share an industry or not, that allows you to come together and have conversations unlike I'm able to have with anyone else in my life. And that's not to say that my non-boss friends aren't smart or great conversationalists or any of those things, but their breadth of experience just isn't that of someone who is running a business, who is working for mission and impact, who, is looking at growing a company or managing a community or like doing those sorts of big things in the world. In bosses, that creates a different kind of person. And so it's in those spaces that I most like to show up and have the like crazy off the wall conversations about things that are incredibly good and deep and like mind bending and sometimes make me sweat.
Well, and it's a different level of access to context because if I am having to talk with somebody about give back components that doesn't have a business, they like see me say, what? I mean, I gave to the Red Cross. I told them to put me on the donor list. I'm not sure what you mean.
You probably shouldn't give it to the Red Cross. But.
Right. And there's different things that are normal for us.
Yeah.
That it does change your conversation. We've had multiple conversations around things like copyright infringement and trademarks.
Yes.
And if you don't understand that, then there are things that will fly around in that conversation that keep it from being as fluid and succinct as it could be. There are things about online platforms that if you're not aware of them, it changes things. And just that awareness of like, I am trying to run an ethical business and my values come first and not like, so how much money you make? Like,
that's a distinct
the primary.
That's a distinct difference as well. I also think that it's just a shorthand. You know what I mean? Like we have a shorthand with each other that if we're talking to non-boss friends, then we have to do like a level of explaining. But we have like a common language that we can speak in and we don't have to, like, well, this means yada, yada, yada. And because of this, blah, blah, blah. I mean, like there are some differences in what our businesses are. And maybe sometimes we have to explain like minute things, but for the most part, like we have a shorthand that we can speak in, and it allows us to get deeper faster than if we were trying to talk to someone who's not a business owner.
Yeah.
Well, and when you're talking with somebody that is a business owner, there's more empathy for what's happening. Because when I talk to people, like, and I've experienced this for years, you work too much.
Oh, didn't we just have this conversation?
Right. It's like, I just work more than you want me to work. But what I think is work and what you think is work is probably different anyway. And so that whole thing of like, you work too much, or, I don't know why you working so, like, insert thing here. That is a very different conversation with somebody that will happily work for someone else for the rest of their life, as compared to somebody that is like, I want to work for me. And I will hop in for somebody else when I feel like it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Our problems are not relatable in most situations.
It's not.
Oh, man. Oh, this is so good. Okay, next question for us. I'm interested to hear your answers. But have you ever felt like there was something that you could not bring to this group? And it's thinking specifically about our communities, but also literally anything at all. And I don't like Erica's smirk. I'm going to make you go first.
Knew it was coming. No. When it comes to our communities, I don't look at us as competition. And even when I was more heavily in the beauty industry, I didn't look at people that did the same thing that I did as competition. So I've kind of had that type of mindset. And so it doesn't feel foreign to me. But there's no part of me that feels like I can't say this, because if I say this or I ask this question, I'm going to give something away and this person's going to know and they're going to go do the thing and steal my idea.
That is toxic AF.
Ain't it? Who expends that much energy worrying about what somebody's going to steal from you? Because let me explain something to you. You are the only person who could do it the way you do it. Amen. They could steal the idea, but it's still going to be mediocre, milquetoast, watered down. It's not going to be what you could make. So I don't spend a whole lot of time worrying about people copying. It's the nature of the business. It just is, especially with online businesses. People are going to come in. I've had people come into my community and immediately get out of the community and do something similar, but not as successful.
And this is where, in being in the beauty industry, we, in a lot of ways, knew that if you had somebody that came in and worked with you as a subcontractor, if they were good, you knew they weren't going to be there long because they were going to go do their own thing. And it was whether or not they were going to become friendly competition or not. And this idea of somebody is stealing something that you weren't the first person to do, that you are not the only person to continue doing, is foolishness to me anyway. But to know that that can happen in a friend group, as somebody that was conditioned growing up that women are not your friends, which is funny to me that I work with mainly women. I don't have that. I don't have any fear of, I can't ask this question because it's giving something away. I can't ask you this question because you're keeping trade secrets that I can't know. And from a human standpoint, I don't feel like I can't show up as me because I have had challenging moments in my life and I have shown up with some of those. And again, I'm going to echo what I said earlier in that I have been on my own journey of really questioning, what do I want to bring or share? Not because I'm not willing to share it or it's not important, but is it helpful, or am I saying it just because I'm hurt and I just need to hurt in public with other people right now? And it's
which are
really,
both fine.
Yes. And for me, knowing how much the wearing of the emotions on all body parts, not just my sleeve, was such a thing, it made me very cognizant of like, is there a purpose for this? Because my energetic output has a cap at some point. It's not infinite. And so really having to question, why am I putting my energy here, has helped me to really process like, this feels good. Do I want to bring something in here that doesn't feel good to me? Do I want to, and then I'm like, do I want to bring this anywhere? No, I don't. And so
I mean, but isn't that what adult friendships are about? Like, I feel like
it should be, but like, I know it's not always.
It's not. And I do think that like when we're younger, we think that adult friendships are supposed to be like about spilling all of your emotions on your friends and crying together and having that big, wait and exhale moment where we all finally get our shit together and then drink wine and do the bus stop.
I don't need the shoop.
I don't need to do the bus stop. I don't need to shoop. Well, you know what? But no, this is not, that's slightly untrue. I do think that we get there, but also we're very cognizant of how much we don't
stay there.
Like I don't think that I have any friendships now as an adult where I show up into the space and just dump and then, don't feel some sort of, first of all, what do you call it? The vulnerability,
emotional hangover.
The vulnerability hangover. Like, yes. If I do that, I feel so yucky the next day. And then the next time I talk to him, I'm like, I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to do that. You know what I mean? Like, and I just wanted, as I get older, I find myself getting out of the habit of doing that, only giving that to people who I pay to take those on. Like,
there's something to be said for that.
Get to therapy, tell your journal, and then when you're ready to talk about it, bring it to your friends. We can talk about it without it being so heightened emotionally. Then you can bring it to your friends, and then it might be a learning experience for everyone. But it just is not. It's not a good place to be, business-wise, personal, any of that. No. Just come in and cry and be like angry.
But the piece that's so important about it is that I don't care if it's life or business. And please correct me if either one of you disagree. I don't think either one of you let me do this, and I don't think I do this to you too, to let anybody bring something, personal or professional, and that's it. It's like, okay, that's great. Now what do we do? What's the action? We're not going to sit in the emotion. We're not going to sit in this weird, I have not made a decision. I don't know what I want to do. I'm just going to, be real like.
Who does this? Who call yourself out. You're the one who always trying to make somebody think something beyond like, I have a feeling. I have a feeling. It's like, let me have a feeling. I'm allowed.
Right. I mean, we are very action oriented. I feel like that's like part of being bosses, right? We're incredibly action oriented. Like if you don't ever come here just wanting to process something, because we're going to give you some homework.
So what's next? What does that mean? And sometimes maybe there's a, existential reason, but it's like, okay, this happened, this sucked, or this was great. And now what? Like,
and what you can do about it?
What's the thing?
That's the best part about this friendship, honestly. I don't feel like you guys let me wallow. You always give me
I know I got time for that. We're bosses. We do not have time to wallow.
I ain't got time for it either. That's why I'm so glad that y'all don't let me, because it would be very easy to do so.
But I think if we sat back and really made a list of some of the things that we've challenged each other to do, that would be a lot of stuff. Because it's like, okay, or let's talk this through and what's the decision? What's next? And I think that there's a beautiful piece there, because so often people act like you can't be friends with someone that does similar things, let alone be women that do similar things, because there's this lie that women cannot be friends and have these other intersecting factors. And it's not. Is it true for some people? Sure. Yep. It's not true for everybody.
That's just some patriarchal bullshit. They don't want us to get together because all women are witches. And if we get together and start doing some magic, everybody's going to be
Fact. Right. I do want to bring in this piece here, though, of like, one of the things that we have, because we have this relationship where we are talking about what we do, and we have so many, what's the common interests? Sorry, that was fleeting there for a second. We've also found ways to incorporate each other in what we do, right? They're the same, but they're also complementary. Like, we could keep what we do completely separate from each other, but Tasha has turned her entire community into crystal shoppers.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, kind of Erica too, which I love. But like having you guys on the podcast and in the community and part of events, and I've been on Erica's podcast, like, we're doing things together because being in the same industries, and maybe not industry, but having a very similar business model enables us to involve each other in the things that we do really easily. Like, it's no thing for one of us to pop on somebody's podcast because we all do podcasts or whatever it may be, or come into well, you did once upon a time.
I did.
Or like pop into a Zoom thing or whatever it may be. Because we're all in it, it's really easy for us to be a part of each other's thing as well. Which is cool.
Agreed.
Which is cool. Okay. I feel like we should start wrapping this up. This has been literally a blast. Tasha, what is milk toast?
Milk toast. Just bland. Just bland.
Okay. You said it earlier, and I've literally never heard of milk toast.
I should have just. You never heard of milk toast?
No, that's interesting.
Well, you know what?
Like saltine crackers.
No, not even saltine crackers, because saltine crackers has salt.
Well, facts.
I'm Googling milk toast. I also did check the Being Boss community sales page. The word safe is not on it anywhere.
Woo-hoo.
Just so we know. Okay. Oh, why is milk toast an insult? Okay, it's actually defines milk toast, milqueetoa.
Yes,
I was thinking milk as in like
milk.
Boobs. As a timid, meek, and unassertive person. Okay. There you go. Perfect. Thank you. I learned something new today. Also, a benefit of having some boss friends, especially when that's an author. You end up learning new words.
Yes.
There you go.
Tasha does throw around words. I'm like, wait,
I know. Like,
I got 50 cent words. I mean, it's kind of my business, y'all.
Right. It is. Ladies, this has been a treat. Erica, highest of fives to you for giving me the idea for having the two of you on to have this conversation. I think this is exactly the conversation that we needed to have this time. I look forward to what sort of shenanigans happens in the future. But to wrap up, why don't you both tell everyone where they can find more about what it is that you do? Tasha, I'm going to get you to go first.
It's easy. I'm Tasha L Harrison everywhere. TashaLHarrison.com is where you can find information about my books and also the Word Makers community.
Perfect. Erica.
Yes. Again, I am Erica Courdae, and you can learn more on ericacourdae.com. I highly suggest you coming over to pauseontheplay.com so you can learn more about the podcast, everything we do over there, and you can learn about and sign up for Pause on the Play, the community.
Perfect. Final question for you both. Erica, what's making you feel most boss? Tasha, you get to think about this while I ask Erica.
Figuring out what traveling again will look like once the world.
Oh, you stole mine.
Amen.
I literally yesterday almost hopped in Marco Polo. Like, when can we go to New Orleans? I would just buy a ticket now.
Tomorrow.
Go?
Y'all want to go tomorrow?
Like, I was like, I need to go, because I'm not even that person that has a huge, like, I need to travel bug. And yet I am like, I need to go. I need to do things and I am looking forward to having that connection in person.
Yeah.
Because we've been so disconnected for so long. Now I may go out and do it and be like, I take it back. I'll go back in my solitude. However, let me figure that out. Let me go back out into the world.
Small doses.
Right.
Yeah. Perfect.
Right. So,
well, you figure that out. And yes, New Orleans, we'll talk about that later. Tasha, what about you?
What's making me feel most boss? Probably, well, number one is friendship, because I feel like this is the most healthy friendship that I've had with two people in a very long time. And I enjoy it greatly. It challenges me, and I just enjoy it all.
Well, you're going to make me cry. I've never cried on a podcast before.
I'm not going to cry. Thug tears, suck them back in. But really.
Oh, I love that.
I'm very grateful for what we have.
Ditto.
And the space and the energy and the shenanigans.
Especially the shenanigans.
So great.
More of those soon.
Yes, please.
Perfect. Thank you both for coming and having this conversation. This was fun.
Thank you for having me.
All right, boss, because you're here, I know you want to be a better creative business owner, which means I've got something for you. Each week, the team at Being Boss is scouring the news, the best entrepreneurial publications, and updates and releases of the apps and tools that run our businesses, and is curating it all into a weekly email that delivers the must-know tips and tactics in the realms of mindset, money, and productivity. This email is called Brewed. We brew it up for you each week to give you the insight you need to make decisions and move forward in your creative business. Check it out now and sign up for yourself at beingboss.club/brewed. That's beingboss.club/BREWED. Now, until next time, do the work, be boss.
Yeah.